I am a psychotherapist. I mainly use the methods of Gestalt therapy and transpersonal psychotherapy. They're still rather uncommon in Finland. I usually treat quite normal problems: anxiety, depression, domestic problems, panic disorder, impotence, and jealousy, and various other problems. I will present some images that show these people's emotions. These two images show the emotions people hold inside: horror, rage, depression, loneliness. A truth that's being denied is how the experiences in utero and during birth affect people. They're being discarded as humbug or figments of our imagination. This image clearly shows what a child feels in the womb. She's getting ready to be born. She enters the tunnel. The snake threatens her and her life. This symbolic entering into the snake's mouth, or being crushed, symbolizes how some children experience their birth. They're crushed by a monster, as it were. It is a crushing experience. About 1 patient in 3 remembers the birth experience during extended therapy. How is this possible? According to medical science, our memory centers can't recall the birth. We assume it's some kind of body memory or cell memory. Maybe someday, science will know how we remember this truth, the truth of our birth. The birth experience often activates mystical experiences, such as experiences with monsters or extraterrestrial experiences. There are monsters or someone in pursuit of you. I've been a psychotherapist for some 20 years. In my work, I've come across a vast amount of paranormal phenomena, extraterrestrial experiences, and experiences in the mind. And we know that in America, there is a program called SETI, which means Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. I would like to launch another complementary program, SSTI, Search for Supraterrestrial Intelligence. This program should be allotted much more funds, because finding supraterrestrial intelligence can be much more difficult than finding it in space.
The universe is 20,000 million years old. I'm convinced that there is other intelligent life in the galaxy. Many of my fellow scientists are of the same opinion, states Professor of Astronomy Stuart Bowyer of the University of California, a member of the Extraterrestrial Intelligence Project SETI. Bowyer maintains that there could be at least 1 million planets in the galaxy where intelligent life exists. The absolute limit on the transfer of information is the speed of light. One often wonders what other ways of communicating there might be apart from radio signals. Bowyer ponders and offers the ideas of telepathy and the 4th dimension. Physicists already in theory know of 20 dimensions. Bowyer gives us a simple guideline. Let's begin by examining the universe that we already know exists. The universe lives all the time. Life is continuously being created and terminated. The crash of a huge comet on Jupiter in the summer of 1994 serves as a reminder of this. Any one of the fragments accompanying the comet was capable of destroying Earth. In what way could life have begun on Earth other than in accordance with either the Bible's account of creation or Darwin's.
Our sun is a child of the Andronover Nebula. 5 billion years ago, it was a burning ball of fire in the path of a huge body in space, Angora. When it came close enough, it ripped flames off the sun, but didn't incorporate them. This was the birth of the planets circulating our sun. Every sixth planet in our universe is a test planet. It means an improved human race is being developed. The Earth is one of the decimal planets, test sites of two-brained mid-breathers' salt-based life. Sodium chloride is the information system that produces our electrochemical core. Mid-breather indicates the intensity of our life. Super-breathers live faster. Sub-breathers need to get their energy directly from the sun. Two-brained is an indicator of the quality of our intelligence. They say the three-brained have had problems, and the one-brained couldn't create the intelligence needed. This sheds light on the basis of human intellectual development. We have the required intellectual capacity that must evolve to become spiritual capacity with the thought adjuster God gave us. The thought adjuster and our mind together form our soul, which is the primary stage of our ascent into heaven. We are to grow here in matter, continue our growth in the preparatory worlds, and finally, as immaculate spirits, give our Creator feedback on His work.
Meitä tähtiläisiä on täällä maan päällä paljon. Muun muassa minä olen tehnyt paljon astraalimatkoja eri planeetoille. Esimerkiksi Siriukselle, koska olen sieltä kotoisin. Olen jälleen syntynyt maahan kaukaa Siriusplaneetalta. Sieltä minä olen tullut. Siellä ovat vanhempani, isoisäni, oma sisareni. Kuulun 3. enkelihierarkiaan. Sieltä synnyin Siriusplaneetalle. Sieltä maahan, koska minulle annettiin tehtävä tulla tänne maan päälle kertomaan kosmisista asioista ja elämästä maailmankaikkeudessa. Elämästä, joka on ihmisille mysteeri.
Salyut 6 and Soyuz 9 orbited the Earth together from June to November 1978. On the 17th of June, cosmonauts Vladimir Kovalyonok and Alexander Ivanchenov sighted a UFO. In space, they held the following conversation about what they had seen.
A round object approached us. Our distance from Earth was 30. Our position coordinates were 93 and 70. The object was moving away from our craft, away from Earth, approximately in the direction of 20 or 30. It went under our craft. It was bright white. Then it departed. Can you describe its shape? A ball, like a tennis ball first. Then it grew larger. I never saw an inexplicable phenomena during a space flight, But on a flight from Washington to Moscow, I saw a strange, clearly triangular object. It was traveling in the same direction as our plane. It was flying at about 1,500 meters, some 1,000 meters from us. Our velocity was 950 kilometers an hour. And the object's about 1,500 kilometers an hour as it flew past us and vanished. I reported it to the passengers and the crew. No one understood what it was. It was not an airplane, only a triangular, brightly white object. It did not send any message. It was definitely a UFO sighting. Unfortunately, I have no other similar experiences. Other cosmonauts have described seeing such UFO phenomena. I don't really believe in them, even though much is written about it. I've talked to space pilots from the USA and the USSR, but they have not confirmed these stories.
One of the KGB's most interesting reports tells of a Soviet Army combat operation against UFOs in Vietnam in the summer of 1965. 3 missile batteries engaged an unidentified flying object. The UFO returned fire with a needle-thin blue ray. In an instant, the ground radar, launch platforms, and all metal objects were reduced to smoldering scrap iron. 200 personnel were killed. The UFO vanished silently into space.
I'm Vladimir Ayaya, chairman of the Samara Ufologist Club and head of the UFO Research Center, Alpha. At midnight, near the city of Samara, an Army radar detected a triangular object that discharged rays upwards. The object landed near the radar base, and 2 guards suddenly disappeared. When they returned after 90 to 120 minutes, the serial numbers of their weapons had been eradicated. The radar showed how the object dissolved in many shining pieces. According to experts, it was caused by some material ricocheting from the uneven surface. When the object landed, it reacted to the radar beams by aiming a powerful impulse at the radar antenna. It was destroyed. There was commotion at the base. The machinery was destroyed and 2 guards had disappeared. A sensational incident in a secret base. Once the guards had returned and the object had flown away, they found an impression in the field where the object had landed, caused by a powerful explosion or huge pressure. The incident was unique, but there was more to come. A triangular object was seen over the city of Samara. It also had lights like this. Its motion was pulsating. A housewife saw an object like this from her own window. It happened in Samara, a bustling industrial city.
In the 1980s, the Soviet Defense Ministry ordered Army units to investigate all UFO incidents and report them to the KGB. With the end of the Cold War, UFO researchers too have been able to study Secret Service and military intelligence reports from various countries. Over a period of 3 years, the databank of Russia's leading UFO publication, Terminator, has collected a good 3,000 reports of UFOs and a large number of sensational photographs. Analysis of the report reveals that UFOs have appeared in large numbers during politically difficult times. According to researchers, sunspots and related atmospheric disturbances have increased at such times. Russian UFO investigators say that the next restless period will occur at the turn of the century, when many UFOs will appear. According to Professor Vladimir Ayaya, head of the Russian UFO Research Center, ufology includes the study of human interaction with other forms of intelligence. Russian researchers are also seeking a solution to the problems of time and dimension associated with UFOs. Time at the edge of a revolving UFO is different from time at its central point. The time difference eliminates gravity. Ayaya has personally encountered UFOs and beings from space.
I've encountered the phenomena 3 times. Twice I've seen a UFO in flight. Once I've been in close contact, which is the term used in Professor Hynek's classification. The being I encountered was about 3 feet tall, pale and bald, resembling this doll I'm holding. No comparative study has been conducted on how many documents there are in the Russian and American files, but I assume there are many more in the USA. Because the UFO phenomena have been covered up in Russia, there are fewer documents about them too. The archives are now being opened, and recently we've received 1,200 documents from the KGB. We expect to find even more documents. I assume all governments are doing the same thing. At first, everything new is being covered up. They're trying to use the technology it offers and the knowledge that can be used by the military. Also, there's a social reason for the cover-ups. This new information might cause unrest. 2 days before I came here, a UFO was sighted in Moscow, on Kalinin Street, near the site of the bloody riot on May Day. The UFO was sighted at night. Our statistics show that UFOs annually abduct up to 5,500 people who never return. This is an absolute fact. Most of them are young people. Modern science can't explain this phenomenon. The Russian Science Academy is rather serious about it. For instance, last year, the KGB gave me an entire dossier with several letters and descriptions by eyewitnesses and people who have experienced an encounter.
UFOs are a worldwide problem. In recent years, they've been a key issue in the news media in the United States. One of the most recent talking points has been Harvard University psychiatrist John Mack's study of more than 100 cases of abduction by UFOs.
Recent developments of interest here in the United States among researchers like myself and colleagues of mine is the apparent abduction or capture of up to 5 American F-14 Tomcat jet fighters by alien vehicles commonly known as UFOs. These captures began in September of 1988 when we lost the first F-14 fighter jet, Navy fighter jet, to action by a UFO. Then a couple months later in December of 1988, we had 2 F-14 Tomcat jet fighters captured by a large delta-shaped craft over Cabo Rojo, the southwest corner of Puerto Rico. Then later, in 1989, in January, we lost another 2 F-14 Tomcat fighters believed to be involved in pursuit of UFOs over the Cabo Rojo area of southwest Puerto Rico.
In 1947, the Second World War was not long over, and the CIA was established. A UFO exploded and crashed in New Mexico. There were dozens of eyewitnesses. The United States Army took possession of the wreckage of the UFO and placed a secrecy ban on all related information. Soon afterwards, President Harry Truman ordered the establishment of the top-secret Majestic 12 group. Its task was to coordinate U.S. security against a threat from space. The group was given the job of secret UFO investigations. The Army collected the remnants of the crashed UFO. The bodies of 4 space beings were found in the wreckage. One of the humanoids was still alive when soldiers transported them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. President Eisenhower set up the Robertson Commission, which was to be under CIA control. It was assigned to protect the United States from UFOs and conceal from the public all information about them. There are claims that Eisenhower met with space beings at Lake Maroc in spring 1954. The U.S. government and the space beings are said to have made an agreement under which the Greys, as the group were known, would provide the United States with space technology and would be allowed in return to carry out genetic tests on humans. U.S. defense technology has developed flying saucer-like aircraft. In a top-secret area in Nevada stands the closely guarded military research center, Area 51. Here, it is claimed, saucer-like flying vehicles have been tested in collaboration with humanoids. U.S. aerospace technology has developed new super aircraft, which are undetectable by radar. The superplanes achieve speeds of almost 9,000 kilometers per hour. The tailplane has been entirely removed from the models of the future. The UFO cover-up in the United States has entered a new phase. Is the government finally relaxing its strategy based on national security? Pressure on the government is growing. Recently, Congressman Stephen Schiff demanded information on the almost half-century of UFO cover-up policy.
There's every reason to believe that there was at least one live alien at the 2 crash sites in New Mexico in July 1947. And that, of course, if there was a live alien, he was examined by the U.S. government officials. There were certainly dead bodies, which were also examined. Whether there is an agreement between aliens and the U.S. government, I've heard all kinds of rumors. I simply do not know. It's in my gray basket. Maybe. We don't know. So I believe there is overwhelming evidence that the original MJ-12 documents and some new ones recently received are genuine. All kinds of claims of fraud have been made. None of these have been substantiated. I've written a 108-page report about the documents that lists more than 30 pieces of information that were not known before my research and which nobody on the outside could have known. I even have the opinions of people who worked for President Truman that the documents are most likely genuine. We don't really know. There is one slight indication of a change in government policy. The National Security Agency, which spends about $10 billion a year in secret in the U.S., listening in on communications from all over the world, has in the past refused to release any of its many UFO documents. It admitted they had them, but it refused to release them. I have recently heard, within the last 2 weeks, that they have notified a researcher who filed a Freedom of Information request for their UFO documents that they would be sending him more than 200 such documents. If that's the case, somebody has changed his view somewhere. The Soviet government, on the other hand, has been more open, and a number of documents have been released, official military documents from the Soviet Union. That may encourage America to release some of its information.
President Clinton and UFO investigators held secret talks in the winter of 1993-94. Why?
You have to remember that up till now, most of the contact that's been made has been unorganized, anecdotal, episodic. And it is time for the civilian community, not the military, but the civilian community of the world to begin to take this seriously and to take responsibility for researching this and for making contact. Our assessment is that these are real. We are not alone, and that there is overwhelming evidence that this is the case. They need to know that we have, in the United States, extraterrestrial spacecraft and bodies that have been retrieved. They need to know that there have been major sightings involving tens of thousands of people in Belgium. They need to know that in Mexico that there is, to this day, overflights in daylight and at night of disc-shaped and triangular craft that are clearly of extraterrestrial origin. So we need to bring this information to a world population. Up to this point, I have to say that the government has been unwilling to discuss this for national security, technological, and other reasons, mainly dealing with panic in society. But the civilian community has not been acting in a responsible way in how it has been speaking of this subject, because the worst thing that would happen would be to bring this information out in a way that would panic society and which could cause people to lose hope for the future. And I think that we have to be responsible in what we are saying and doing. And this is a very key point to this second phase of the CSETI project, is that our intentions to brief world leadership and to brief the world are to do it in a way that are non-harmful to the consciousness of humanity.
In 1972, a high-ranking CIA official, Victor Marchetti, published an article on the CIA's analysis of UFOs. He concluded that the fact that Earth is visited by beings who are more developed than we are could upset the traditional power structure, destroy political, religious, and economic institutions, and lead our civilization into anarchy. All this will not inevitably happen, but it will create apprehension about the future among the leaders of the major powers. These fears will be realized when ufological secrets are inflated into issues of national security. Since 1952, the CIA has studied human reactions when faced by an enemy. Secret tests have been conducted using electromagnetic energy. The CIA's brainwashing or mind control program is known as MGM Ultra. It is secret, like the military technology base Area 51 in the Nevada desert.
Concerning the Area 51, I don't know a great deal about that area, and I have a number of friends that go out there all the time and check it and so on. But basically, I spent 2 years in Central Intelligence Agency, and some things that do bother me about that is if you want to hide something, you're the military or a government agency or anything, and you want to hide something, the best way to do that is to create something else for someone else to see. We've done this in the company before in covert operations. It's an excellent way of doing that. And the best way to also cover it better is to, of course, leak secrets about it, make sure that those are confirmed secrets and that only pieces of that can be known with these reliable sources and so on. And what you, in effect, end up seeing is something quite unusual or something that's different than what it is that they're actually trying to hide. That would be my sense of it. I have no proof of that. But that's just my experience from being in the company myself back in the Vietnam War, 1968 to 71. I think the UFO cover-up situation, I think is primarily an American thing, and I hate to say that, but other countries are quite forward with their ideas and views and coming forward with their information. Even the Russians now are giving remarkable information to George Knapp, and he's bringing back some remarkable things apparently. The cover-up is going to end when someone finally literally throws the evidence up on the table. When that happens, the government and everyone else is going to have to come forward. Let me give you just a scenario. Suppose someone had an alien and tossed a sucker up on the table. When that happens, someone's going to come forward in America to arrest that individual. That's going to tell you who is hiding what at that point. That's a real important thing to think about. So our primary area of work is in getting physical evidence. We have several implants and other things. We're uncovering evidence all the time. Ultimately, we think we'll find literally a body of evidence. When that is placed in the public domain, government entities and others are going to come forward. These are then the people who are, in fact, responsible for covering things up, because they're going to be the ones to come forward to arrest you or cover it up or threaten you. Those are the people that will really be guilty. So I think, in a nutshell, basically, the aliens can't be controlled. The government's going to spin the information and convince you that they are. They are not, in fact, in control. No one is.
I am a contactee. I am not an abductee. I willingly go. I want to help. I find it fascinating, and I feel that it is important that other souls who are also having these experiences try to come forth with the information, because we are not being told the entire story by our governments. The crafts that I have been into, one of the motherships that I go to is called Atlantia. It is approximately 250 miles long. It has a population of it, from what I understand, of anywhere from 150 to 500,000 beings at one particular time. It is completely self-sufficient. It needs nothing. My last contact was 2.5 weeks ago in North County, San Diego. And ladies and gentlemen, I have had the opportunity to converse with the Andromedans regarding much UFO information that is circulating throughout the UFO community. And one of the things that I have been able to do is to verify where many of the alien bases, or joint alien-human bases, are on the world. And I have in front of me a map.
The CIA has a department for the spread of disinformation. It is at least as big as the Department for the Collection of UFO Data. The CIA makes it difficult to distinguish between genuine and false information about cooperation between itself and UFOs and about its secret bases. UFO investigators are, however, stationed in the areas where there is much UFO activity.
Iran, in the middle of the Iranian desert. Tibet, high in the mountains of the Himalayas. Narvik, in Scandinavia, near a military base. Africa, there are 2 in Egypt. 1 in Algeria, near Tahat. 1 in the Sudan. Okay, there are 2 in Australia. 1 south of Alice Springs called Pine Gap, and another in the Great Victoria Desert. These are both built by the CIA of the United States. And the government there and the aliens are both operating both these bases. Okay, now I'd like to go to South America, to the country of Brazil. Also, along the Andes Mountains in Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina. There are many bases as well in the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to show you where they are in North America and the United States. State of Montana, Red Mountain. In Nevada, Black Rock Desert. And the other in the Kawich Mountain Range, which is known as Area 51.
The abduction by a UFO of 2 shipyard workers, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, in October 1973, caused a sensation in the United States. The men were out fishing when behind them landed a cigar-shaped, silver-colored UFO, about 30 meters in length and emitting bright blue light.
On October the 11th, 1973, Calvin Parker, a friend of mine, and myself went fishing on the Pascagoula River in Pascagoula, Mississippi. It was probably a little after the sun went down in the evening, and we were fishing from a pier out into the river, and I heard some sound behind me, a hissing-like sound, and I turned and looked, and there was some kind of crab was hovering about 18 inches or 2 foot above the ground, and Calvin had turned by this time. He was looking at the same object. There was blue lights up on the end that was toward us, which I'm assuming was the front, and a door, a sliding door, I assume, appeared there, and there was a brilliant light that came outside of the door, and 3 things, I found out later, were robots. They came into this beam of light and came outside, and 2 of them took hold of me, and 1 took hold of Calvin, and when they took hold of me, I felt pain in my left arm, and I seemed to rise above the ground to the height they were into the light beam, and they carried me aboard the craft, And inside the room that we were in was probably round. It was glowing from the walls and the ceiling and the walls and the floor. And these things released me, and I could move my eyes, the only thing I could move. And in front of me, something came out from the wall. It appeared to be a big eye. It moved up in front of me, in my face, and it lingered there a while, and then it moved downward. And I'm assuming it went under me and came back over the top of my head and back in front of me again. And this thing remained there a few minutes, and then it went back into the wall. And by that time, these things had come back and took hold of me. And we turned and was in the beam of light and went back outside the craft, and they released me, and I fell to the ground. It was this time I saw Calvin, and he was standing there with his arms outstretched. He appeared to be going in shock. And I made myself toward him, and before I reached him, I heard the hissing sound again, and I looked behind me and saw those blue lights, and this craft was just instantly gone. And I made my way on to Calvin, and I brought him back from going into shock, and before I could talk to him, and I tried to assure him that they hadn't done any harm to us. Physically, I didn't know what they had done to him mentally. These things were robots. They were about 5 foot 6 inches tall. They was gray in color. It appeared to me it looked like elephant skin. It was very wrinkled. And their arms were, they were real long in proportion to their body. Their legs remained together. They didn't have feet. It seemed to be something round where the stumps where the feet should have been. And I knew, or I know now, that these things were robots. They didn't have any indication of breathing. They didn't have any eyes. And I found out later under deep hypnosis that there's a window to the left of that area where the eye came from in the wall, and they were living beings in that, looking through that window at me. I don't think they could come out into this atmosphere, and they had the rowboats out there to examine me. We didn't know what to do after the craft left, and in talking, we decided that we called Keesler Air Force Base, which is only about 25 or 30 miles from there. We called Keesler, and I called Keesler, and they told me that they didn't handle those things, that we'd have to go through our sheriff's department. So then we hesitated there. We didn't want to be called nuts and so on, but I finally decided that we needed to tell someone. I thought it might be a threat to our country.
According to FBI files, Hickson and Parker were interrogated for hours in the Jackson Sheriff's Office the following day. What made the interrogation special was the presence of 12 federal security experts, including 3 colonels, 2 lieutenant colonels, a major, and a captain, led by Colonel Amdahl, a senior medical officer. Professor James Harder's use of hypnosis and a lie detector test showed that the men were telling the truth. In the case of Hickson, the incident did not remain his only UFO contact. They have continued to this day.
Since 1973, I've been contacted many times from these beings. They've told me of world events that will happen. In fact, they told me that for a reason that communism would fall, and I told the news people about this before it did fall, and they didn't believe me. They laughed at me. We know now that communism in Russia has failed, and it's going to soon be a thing of the past. These people have told me of a major event that's going to happen in the world that's going to affect everyone. But I'm not prepared and can't talk about it at this time.
Hundreds of UFO cases have been reported in Scandinavia. The most famous incidents have been the discovery of the wreck of a UFO on Spitsbergen by 6 Norwegian Army pilots in the summer of 1952, and the Hessdalen UFO incident in northern Norway. In addition to international experts, Norwegian universities and the Army took part in the Hessdalen UFO investigations. Hundreds of UFO reports have come out of Finland too. Most UFO sightings have occurred in northern Finland, in the Pudasjärvi-Kuusamo Fell district at the turn of the 1970s. An incident that occurred at Nivala in northern Finland in August 1993 amazed UFO researchers.
On August 15th, 1993, an interesting UFO incident took place. A 73-year-old woman saw a red light from her back window. She went to look at it through the window and saw the globe had turned into a triangular, roofless room. It hovered in the air, and 2 pairs of ladders appeared. The room was lit by spotlights hanging from the roof. The man had a small basket over his left arm. They started moving, as if on hyperspeed film, picking up samples from the ground. Once the job was done, the room vanished and the globe inflated. Once its normal size, it vanished. Scientists approached the incident using hologram technology, as the UFO was sighted only through one of the 2 window panes. Professors and psychologists from the University of Oulu will assist.
Niinkö, minut herätettiin yöllä. Uutiset kuunneltiin 10 aikana ja yöllä tuli joku, minä nukun oikealla kyljellä. Otettiin vasemmasta olkapäästä kiinni ja joku sanoi minulle, se vähän ravisteli olkapäästä ja sanoi, että herää. Se tuli niinkö jostakin ämpärin pohjalta se ääni. Ja samalla kun minä aukasin silmät, ei siellä voinut kahtua. Siellä oli niin kuin aurinko paistunut siellä. Ja kun minä tuun tuossa kynnyksen tykönä, niin minä katson tuonne metsään tuossa. Niin voi mikä siellä oli. Semmonen pallo. Minä huusin Alli minun siskolle tuonne sänkyhuoneeseen, että tuu hyvä lähen kahtoon mikä täällä on, että näetkö sä samanlaisen minkä minä. Ja jos tuo on kuu, niin silloin se on pudonnut ratalta alas. Ja jos se vielä puoli metriä, se oli niin kuin 3 metriä maasta yläpuolella. Jos se vielä puoli metriä laskeentuu, niin se maanvetovoima vettää ja silloin me ollaan räjähtänyt. Ja meitä ei ole varmaan aamulla yllällä enää, eikä meitä taida täällä enää ollakaan. Mä sanoin siskolle sitten, kun siltä niin rupesi nukuttamaan se 10 minuuttia siinä kahtoi. Mä sanoin, että vaan nyt kädet kumminkin risti, että meitä ei taida enää aamulla täällä olla. Se oli ihmeellinen paikka se, että minä silloin rupesi niin väsyttämään niin, että tuntui, että mun silmät menee väkisellä umpeen jo silloin illalla, aivan siinä 8:30 maissa. Ja minähän panin nukkumaan, niin sisko tulee sitten herättämään 1:30 aikana, että tuu kahtoo, että mikä tuolla on tuolla niin metässä. No, että onko se kuu vai mikä se oikein on. Ja minä tulin sitten ja mä sanoin, että ei tuo kuu ole, että se on niin kirkas niin, että eihän siihen voi kahtuakaan. Ja sitten mä pistin vasemman käden näin jotenkin siihen, että kun tuntui, että silmiä ottaa, se oli semmoista. Niin parin päivän päästä rupesi sitten nousee sitten tähän semmoinen 10 senttiä, niin semmoinen palovamma. Ja sitten mä lähdin, kun se tuntuu vaan, että se kuumentaa niin kovasti, niin mä lähdin sitten tuonne Nivalan terveyskeskukseen ja ne oli siellä Pikkaraselle, sai ajaa. Ja Pikkarainen sanoi, että onko sinua joku pistänyt tuohon. Mä sanoin, että ei siihen ole mikään pistänyt. Niin mä sitten rupesin sillekin puhumaan niin, että uskooko hän muihin ufoihin ja tällä lailla, mutta ei se siihen senkään, kyllä se kuunteli sitä vaan. Ja se antoi sitten mulle sitä antibioottia tabletteja ja minä söin ne, niin se sitten meni pois. Mutta minusta tuntuu, että sitä näkyy vieläkin vähän siinä semmoista tummaa tässä.
One remarkable feature linked to UFOs is the mutilation of cattle. Thousands of animals who have died in a strange manner have been found in various parts of the world. Unusual light phenomena have been observed in the areas concerned. The mutilation of cattle has been studied particularly closely in the United States. Incredibly skillful surgical procedures have been used to remove, for example, an eye, an ear, a tongue, or very thin lip membrane. Internal organs have been removed through tiny surgical incisions. Animals have been bled dry in a way that the researchers find incomprehensible. Reports of dissections have come from the United States, Brazil, Great Britain, and Puerto Rico.
Concerning cattle mutilations and this sort of thing in the United States, one of the things I found in the meteorological reports back in the 18th century, in the United States meteorological reports, from time to time, and there were falls, strange falls of different kinds of insects and animals and things like this, and so on, birds and so on, in massive falls in different places in the U.S. One of the things that I found that quite disturbed me was in several of the falls, not all of them certainly, but in several of them, that some of the meat had actually been sliced literally by a machine, according to the reports that I read. One of the things that disturbed me more than anything is that some of the falls were not animal mutilation or animal parts at all. It in fact was human parts that they were finding. That upset me to some degree. It raised a lot of questions about that sort of thing. I also found out that there was a brilliant doctor that realized that if cattle mutilations are going on, why not turn a black light on whenever we're running cattle through a chute and see if any of them have been marked or anything. He did, and apparently found some that were marked. I took that same idea, hopscotched off of his, and found a little portable black light that I could carry with me when I worked with abductees. You pull out a little black light, just kind of turn the lights down real low, and turn on this black light and go over their arms, their neck, their face, particularly behind their ears, and certain places where you'd normally find implants on other abductees, or if they've had shots or anything. Many times the aliens are actually using phosphorescent chemicals whenever they're injecting someone, and this will show up under a black light. This is the kind of tool we use to detect this sort of thing. Oftentimes you'll find other things like a splattering of radium, like if it were in a powder form splattered into their hands. It'll be very brilliant. This will not be hard to find. It'll be very clear. I found a Mandelbrot set on a lady's arm that indicated to me that that thing was apparently drawn there by someone else. She had no idea. Of course, this doesn't show up in regular light, only under black light. These, you'll also find once in a great while strange formations, almost like crop circle drawn designs on these people. I do not know how they get there. Most of them are blue or a bright green, like on a black light a picture that you might shine a black light on. They'll be that brilliant. It'll be very easy to see. Some of them are actually orange. I found one the other day that was orange. We were taking samples of these and trying to find out where these chemicals are actually coming from.
The Hopi Indians regard themselves as the first inhabitants of the Americas. A bright star led them to the land where they settled. The Hopi now say that the star was a flying saucer, piloted by beings they call Kachinas, regarded in their religion as demigods. South America is called the continent of UFOs, where more than 30,000 UFO sightings have been made. Most of the UFO reports have come from Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Venezuela, countries linked by the Andes Mountains. There are claims that the UFOs have secret bases hidden away in the mountains. Most of the photographs of UFOs have been taken in South America. According to researchers, South American states have top secret information which they pass on to the CIA in the United States.
Yeah, definitely the Brazilian government is hiding information about UFO sightings and contacts. And I would say more. I'd say that half of the governments in all over the world knows a lot about UFOs, and they're hiding information about them, of course. Some governments adopt a more liberal position, a more liberal status and releases information like France, like some ministries of China and Argentina and Belgium. We have published information about several operations involving the military personnel from the aeronautics, Brazilian Air Force. Sometimes just making night surveillance in Amazon, and in other times even chasing UFOs with jets, like it happens in Brazil. Because what happens, like it happens in Satan, because what happens is that our government collaborated to the U.S. government for quite 30 years in the past. And they, of course, the government of the United States have a strict policy about UFO stuff, about UFO sightings, about how to report it. And it asked it, the government of the United States asked it to the government allied to it, to give it to them information about UFOs that they could gather in their countries. So it happened to Brazil. We are here on Earth is exactly what they were about 2,000 or 3,000 years ago in their own planet.
Many of the civilizations in outer space studied by Professor A.J. Gevard have visited Earth. Gevard believes they take a neutral view of people but are worried about the condition of the Earth. The reports of people being abducted and of genetic testing have taken on a new feature in Brazil. Samples of human organs and tissue have been taken as if from cattle. Medical science does not know the instruments used to carry out the unbelievably precise surgical operations.
We have reported about 20 to 25 cases in which UFOs approaching their witnesses just attack them for no reason. And sometimes these attacks result in death of the victims. And there's a very special case that we are focusing our attention in the last 6 months, which is the first case ever reported in the world of a human mutilation by extraterrestrial. This case is very, very ugly. It's a case that must be shown because it's real, but it's also a case that shocked people. The case happened, a man was found about 48 hours after his death with several wounds, cuts in the body, and with removal of many vital organs. We have connected this case to mutilations of animals that happen for 40 years all over the world. They are made by extraterrestrials. Well, for instance, we have these photographs to show what we mean. This is a photograph made by the police of the state of São Paulo. You can see holes in the man's upper arm near the shoulders, and you can see the tissues from the mandibles of the man were extracted, and the cuts were precisely done in countering the bones of the face. The eyes were also removed, along with great extensions of tissues along the head. Many holes were found, symmetrical holes, perforations were found in the man's head, throughout which were extracted part of the brain tissue. This is a very amazing picture, but it's very, very similar, fantastically similar to the ones we have taken from animal mutilated all over the world. Now I'm going to show you an even worse picture, which is this one, and here you can see clearly different holes. One of them is in the man's leg, the left leg, and one is in the umbilical area. Throughout this hole was extracted a lot of organs, like the stomach, the liver, a part of the lung, heart, and intestines, and other organs were extracted by this hole that is not very big at all. And experts that performed the autopsies in the body concluded that it was used some sort of a sucking device, like a vacuum cleaner or something, to extract the parts of the human body. And the testicles were also cut off. And we can see exactly the same thing happen with animals all over the world. We got information of 12 other different cases in which people have been found with similar cuts and wounds all over their bodies in different locations in only 5 years.
Secret documents reveal that women between the ages of 17 and 30 have been the most frequent targets of kidnappings and of egg cell and fetus tests. The abducted women have seen hundreds of fetuses inside UFOs at different stages of development, ranging from 3 to 9 months. Extraterrestrial beings have seized pregnant women and removed their fetuses. Virgins have become pregnant, their pregnancies terminating with the disappearance of the fetus.
Certainly the aliens have demonstrated in many abduction cases an interest in human reproduction. That does not mean automatically that every lost fetus was taken by an alien. So I think that they are operating under a set of rules which says, get all the information you can, catalog, evaluate, put it all together, and when they get ready to leave, we Earthlings, they will not permit us to do so unless we have learned the rules of the neighborhood. So I think they're here for their purposes, not to satisfy us. If you were an alien, you'd be concerned. After all, we only killed 50 million of our own kind in World War II and destroyed more than 1,700 cities. You certainly wouldn't want Earthlings going out with that kind of an attitude. Just think for a minute. Last year, the countries on this planet spent $1 trillion US on things military. And yet every single day of the year, 35,000 children died needlessly from preventable starvation and preventable disease. If that isn't an indication that we have our priorities mixed up, I don't know what is. So if I were an alien, I'd be concerned about Earthlings too. That's why I do what I'm doing. That's why I've spoken at 600 colleges and 100 professional groups in 50 states and 9 of 10 Canadian provinces. There is a need for the world to be awakened, to be educated, to take a new view of how we should behave and where we fit in the universe. The time is now.
Vanhemman poikani syntymäpäivän aamuna näin erittäin merkillisen unen. Unessa oli naispuolisen humanoidin kanssa synnytysvastaanottohuoneessa. Hän kehotti minua asettumaan sängylle pitkäkseni ja otti esiin injektioruiskun, jolla hän pisti minua vasempaan olkavarteen. Tämä teki kovasti kipeää ja tunsin kivun uneni lävitse. Sen jälkeen hän asettui pitkälleen minun vartaloani myöten sängylle ja sanoi, en jätä hetkeksikään sinua. Kun heräsin, olivat polttoni alkaneet. Jokunen tunti synnytyksen jälkeen, kellon ollessa noin 11 illalla, menin sairaalan tupakkahuoneeseen tupakalle. Tupakkahuoneen ikkunasta näin myös jotain outoa. Naisten klinikan piha oli hyvin valaistu ja oli kirkas kuutamo. Ja tässä kuutamon valossa näin, kuinka lastenhuoneen vieressä seisovan jalopuusen latvassa istui noin metrin pituinen pöllö. Pöllö katsoi vuoron lastenhuoneen ikkunasta sisään ja vuoroin tupakkahuoneen ikkunaan. Minulla oli hyvin vahva tunne, että minua tarkkaillaan ja minun poikani tarkkaillaan.
In the early 1990s, an extensive study was conducted in the United States into the frequency of abductions. Its findings came as a surprise to all. More than 2% of the whole population, at least 5 million people, were found to have had such an experience. Often the abductions had started in early childhood and continued periodically for several decades. Sometimes the abducted suffer from loss of memory concerning their experiences. In such cases, hypnosis and psychotherapy can be used to help them remember. Information received under hypnosis is not, however, any more reliable than normal recall.
Valkoista. Minkä kokoinen se on? Se on iso. Mä olen siellä sisällä. Katso, miten sinä olet joutunut sinne. Näetkö, miten sinua viedään? Tiedän, mä huudan. Mutta ei mitään ääntä tule. Ääntä ei tule. Kuka sinua vie sinne? Niitä on paljon. Ai, niitä on paljon. Kerro tarkasti, millaisia he ovat. En mä halua katsoa. Katso, se on filmi, niin kuin videokuva. Et sinä ole siellä itse. Sä näet kuvaa. Tänne sydämestä. Nyt olet suojassa täällä. Se ei ole... Sinä näet sellaisen kuvan vaan siellä. Ja voit kertoa siitä. Pieniä. Pienempiä kuin sinä. Ihan oikea. Nyt on paljon niitä pieniä poikia. Ja näköisiä he ovat. Sekin huipeloita. Ne on pitkät kädet. Ne vaan seisoo ja katsoo mua. Millainen asu heillä on? Ei niillä ole vaatteita. Ei niillä ole vaatteita. Sillä yhdellä on. Onko se sama kokoinen? Ei, kun se on niistä kaikkein iso. Onko hän isompi kuin sinä tai minkä kokoinen? Sama isompi vähän. Sillä on valkoinen takki. Makaa. Jonkun päällä vai missä sinä makaat? Mä makaan hoitopöydällä. Hoitopöydällä? Oletko sidottu? Et. Kerro lisää. No, et sinä pysty enää liikkumaan. Katso nyt, mitä he tekevät. Ne seisoo siinä. Ne on siinä niin kuin sen takia, että ne pitää kiinni, jos mä liikun. Miten ne tutkii jollain tavalla. Kuka tutkii? Se valkotakki. Se laittaa mulle jotain sisään. Laittaa sinulle sisään jotain? Minkälaisessa asennossa sinä olet? Mä oon selälläni. Kerro lisää. Kun se laittaa sitten sen esineen sisään, niin se sanoo mulle, että mulle syntyy poika. Kysy siltä, että kuinka sinut on hedelmöitetty sitä poikaa saamaan. Se on laitettu keinotekoisesti minulle. Se on laitettu keinotekoisesti sinulle. Mutta mistä se solu on alkuaan otettu, kun se ei ole sinusta? Kysy se häneltä. Se on heidän omia. Se on heidän omia. Mä oon puhunut 4 ulottuvuudesta. että he ovat 4. ulottuvuudesta. Jaha, jostakin sellaisesta, jota me emme tässä pääse taustamaan. Olivatko ne koko ajan näitä pieniä harmaita poikia, jotka olivat siinä? Vai kuka sinua operoi?
Se on se valkotakkinen.
Se valkotakkinen?
Mm. Se oli mulle vihainen.
Mistä hän oli vihainen?
No kun mä puhuin koko ajan. Ja heräsin monta kertaa.
Heräsit monta kertaa. Oliko hän sukupuoliyhteydessä sinuun? Ei.
Hän katsoi korvia.
Hän katsoi korvia.
Mm. Ja sanoi, että toinen on operoitu jo. Että mun pitää nukkua, että hän saa sen toisenkin korvan operoitu. Ja sitten sen nenän katsoi semmoinen pieni poika, joka oli kirkas.
Kirkas?
Mm.
Siis oliko hänellä sellainen kiiltävä asu? Vai millä tavalla?
Niin, se on semmoinen valkoisen hohtava iho. Hyvin hohtava.
Oliko se ihokin myös tällainen, ettei se ollut vaan se vaate?
Ei hänen pääkin ole ihan valkoinen. Hohtava valkoinen.
Katsoppa eteenpäin. Mitä sinulle sen jälkeen on tehty? Ovatko sen jälkeen käyneet?
Olemme käyneet. Mä oon käynyt antamassa virtaa.
Many critics believe that stories of abduction produced under hypnosis are mere fantasy developed in the subconscious mind. What really happens during hypnotic regression?
Hypnosis is a mechanical system that runs the human thoughts. In hypnosis, your day consciousness is turned off. There are very many ways to do that. Verbal, i.e. sound, into the ear is one. It can be done with lights, through the eye. It can also be done by touching, without a word. We can create hypnosis without any post-hypnotic regression. If the transmitter, hypnotizer, is strong, a medial being can be hypnotized without knowing it. By a mere telepathic impulse. Then there are the means of hypnotism used by aliens. We've received reports on them in conjunction with UFO matters.
Every third or fourth abduction takes place while the victim is conscious, and therefore their study needs no hypnosis. An abducted woman whose pregnancy is started through artificial insemination may later experience a new abduction, during which her fetus is moved to a special incubator where its development continues. The American Betty Andreasson is one of the best-known abductees. During her abduction, a group of small creatures forced their way into her bedroom one evening and took her and her family for examination inside a waiting UFO. A group abduction can also take place with all members of the group fully conscious.
Tammikuun 24. päivä 92 kello 11 illalla, kun lähdimme jäähyväispartista pois autolla, jossa kutsuilla kaikki ihmiset olivat pukeutuneet avaruusolennoiksi, eteiksi. Yhtäkkiä huomasimme suuren keltaisen tähden automme yläpuolella, ja minä kommentoin, että se ei ole mikään tavallinen tähti, vaan se on UFO. Se lähti seuraamaan meitä, ja kun olimme ajaneet kohti Geneven keskustaa, niin Gatin kohdalla tullessamme kohti pientä siltaa yhtäkkiä jotakin tapahtui. Me emme kukaan tajunneet ensin, mitä tapahtui, mutta koko kaupunki hävisi, asunnot, rakennukset, kaikki koirat, autot, liikenne vain häivähti. Ja sen jälkeen meitä kiidätettiin hirvittävällä vauhdilta kohti, kuten myöhemmin kävi ilmi, Ranskan rajaa. Kuljimme ilman läpi muutamassa minuutissa, aikaa on vaikea arvioida, ja yhtäkkiä jysähdimme takaisin. Ja tämän jysähdyksen seurauksena huomasimme olevan Ranskan rajalla, jonne ei millään tavalla olisi voitu ajaa sillä tavalla kuin me sen olimme tehneet. Ja olimme samanlaisessa tilanteessa tulossa risteytykseen. Ja kun ihmettelimme, mitä oikeastaan oli tapahtunut, niin totesimme lopulta, että meidät oli yksinkertaisesti nostettu UFOon ja heitetty kaupungin laidalta toiselle puolelle. Ja tämä tulkittiin sitten itse asiassa kiitokseksi ja jäähyväiseksi, eli bon voyage Genève.
In a short time, UFO abductions have become a burning issue in the United States, as it's become evident that the number of possible abductions runs into millions. This has resulted in the establishment of parapsychology units within universities for the analysis of such experiences. Over the past 20 years, Robin Quayle has examined more than 16,000 people, 600 of whom have experienced an abduction. Sometimes a contact with an extraterrestrial has led to the cure of a serious illness.
One interesting case that I have been investigating is a case near Atlanta, Georgia, where over 150 people in a large telecommunications company had 2 hours of missing time. There was physical evidence present. There were 5 large burned circles left on the grass surrounding this suburban facility, which had a great deal of wooded areas behind it. The entire computer system was down for 2 hours. The phones were down for 2 hours. The main power cable had melted completely for over 4 feet. This facility is engineered to withstand even a nuclear attack. But the battery backup system melted, and the diesel system to back this system up also failed. So there were 3 systems that failed. One man was trapped inside a lead-lined room where a lot of the main power sources are kept, and he could not get out because the electric doors would not function. 3:30, there was to be a shift change, and yet the people who were to leave at 3:30 found themselves still in the building at 5, and the people who were supposed to come to work at 3:30 found themselves still in their parking lot in their cars at 5 o'clock. It was a highly secured facility. People had to use a card system to get in and out of the doors, so there was like mass confusion. This was over. The security guards reported that people had been seen being taken out of the building by aliens and that they saw spaceships. The security cameras on the outside of the building did function because it operated on batteries. This case is still under investigation. The 2 clients have been regressed and worked with and remembered being taken out of the building by small gray aliens with large black oval eyes. And another man who was there also has experienced many out-of-body experiences at work after this. The facility was closed down shortly after this happened, and all the employees moved to other locations. Most were moved out of state. There was sort of a big cover or lid put on this at work, so it was very difficult to pursue an investigation at this company.
One of the most interesting abduction cases is that of the American Lee Haley, who has 2 university degrees, one of them in pedagogics. She worked as a university lecturer until she was dismissed because of her UFO contacts. She's written a book about her experiences entitled Lost Was the Key, in which a special strange feature are officials wearing military uniforms.
I've had experiences with many different types of alien creatures going all the way back to my childhood. One of the main ones I've encountered is what I call a chalky colored creature, in that it's the color of off-white chalk, an off-white color. It's about 4 to 5 feet tall. It doesn't have any hair. It has huge image, black eyes, no pupils, no whites, no ears, no hair. All of the creatures look alike. I can't tell whether each one is a male or a female. They all look identical. These creatures have taken me aboard the craft. The method they use to get me aboard their craft is some kind of light, like a beam of light. And I find myself in this energy force that looks like a light field, and the next thing I know, I'm aboard their craft. These creatures perform medical experiments on me. They are extracting ova from me. They scrape tissue samples. They seem to be making a hybrid race. I've also seen aboard their craft the products of what they're doing with their genetic experimentation. I've seen fetuses lying suspended in transparent containers, and the containers are also suspended. I've seen nothing holding them up. Inside the containers lies a little hybrid-looking baby that looks part human, part alien.
One of the really interesting and also very weird aspects of the abduction phenomena is the pregnancies and the subsequent removal of the fetuses. It's almost unbelievable, and yet there seems to be even medical proof that this has occurred in many cases. I have worked with quite a few people who have had this. It seems that people are abducted, artificially impregnated, and then about 3 months into the pregnancy, they are abducted again and the fetus is removed. I wanted to tell about one interesting case where there was a pregnancy involved, where there seemed to be government involvement with the aliens. Now, this young woman was on a military base and was in the Army in the West, here in the United States. She was drugged by the military people under the pretense of having given blood. She was actually almost forced to give blood. And instead of giving blood, they actually drugged her because the needle was put in the back of her hand, which information she uncovered in the actual regression. She was taken down in an elevator to a very deep base beneath the military base. A large freight elevator. She was taken on a gurney by military hospital personnel who took her down. Then she found herself in a room in this deep underground place, surrounded by small gray aliens. She was lying on a table without any clothes on, and the military people who had taken her down were standing against the wall watching the whole procedure. The aliens took the fetus from her body. And this is a woman who stated that she was not having any kind of sexual activity at all. After the fetus retrieval, she found herself in the different rooms, still underground, with a very blazing white light shining directly down in her face, a very loud, discordant noise going on in the room, and a human man leaning over her face, screaming that she was going to die. Now, this is standard brainwashing techniques. She worked in the blood lab and in the morgue at the hospital there. What is the meaning of these military, or what appears to be military people, being seen on these ships? I mean, Leah Haley has had this type of involvement. Is the government, in fact, assisting and working with the aliens on some project?
For the last couple of years, I've also been receiving telepathic communications from some external source. I don't know where the telepathic messages are coming from, but I've been receiving many of these telepathic communications since May of 1991. And here are some examples of what I've been told telepathically. I have been taught that time is not linear. the message I received was that time is no more linear than the Earth is flat. That time can overlap, that time can be contracted, expanded, that there's more than one dimension that can overlap. And actually, time in the way that we use it is non-existent. I was told that it's really space that's important, not time. I was told that all kinds of geological problems are going to occur all over the world, things such as earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, all sorts of things of that nature, and that it's going to be quite serious. I was not given a time frame other than I was told it was going to happen soon, but of course I don't know what soon means. I was shown a vision in my mind of everything on Earth being brown. Brown sky, brown water, brown dead trees, brown vegetation that was dead, and was given a vision of a family crawling on their hands and knees after some sort of horrible destruction occurred, and I could tell that the family was dying. They were trying to get to the water, which was very brown, but I knew that if they ever made it to the water, once they drank it, they would die anyway. I knew that this family was doomed. That vision was very upsetting to me. I don't know what it means, other than I felt that it had something to do with some sort of disaster that's going to occur. I believe that that's why I was shown that vision.
One of the best-known examples of abductees who have suffered a terminated pregnancy during their abduction is the American Kathy Davis, whose contacts with extraterrestrials started in early childhood and continued until very recently. They drove her to the verge of suicide, but with the help of a hypnotherapist, she overcame her problems.
I've had many experiences with some life form other than human in my life since I was 5, all the way up until just recently, within a month ago. Most of the time, these beings that I have seen, had the experiences with, are about 4 feet tall, 4.5 feet tall, kind of grayish looking, large heads, really black eyes that kind of look through you rather than just looking at you. I'm pretty sure that it was I'm pretty sure it was September 23rd, 1993. I was watching TV, and a bright flashing light caught my eye out the front door. We all ran out to look at it, and it was tremendous white light with multitudes of sparkling color in it. And it got very bright and large, and then it got very small and tiny to a pinpoint, and then it kept doing that, getting bigger and littler as it was moving down to the tree line, back and forth across the trees. And at that same time, while we were out in the road, we saw something walking towards us in the road. And we also heard a beeping sound. We have about 15, maybe 10 to 15 minutes of missing time that night. And I had a tumor that had been photographed on an ultrasound machine in my uterus. And then we had this experience, and then when I had the surgery to remove the tumor and have the hysterectomy, the tumor was gone. I had bleeding in the uterine wall, but the tumor was gone. So I tend to feel that something happened that night to remove that tumor. Perhaps it wasn't the tumor. Maybe it was a fetus. I don't know. I had a missing pregnancy that has left a lot of unanswered questions in my life. I've had some memories of that pregnancy, that child was a girl. I remembered seeing her later in life, as an older child, one time, and she was accompanied by those gray beings. I'm not really sure why they've been having contact with me. I don't know why they've been abducting me, other than perhaps because they took my mother at some point before I was born, and they're following genetic lines.
With regard to human women losing babies at 3 to 4 months of pregnancy, we do have those cases here also, and I have investigated 3 such cases myself. In the 3 cases that I looked at, all 3 of the women seem to have become pregnant unexpectedly, and in 2 cases they were led by some process. They were unreceptive to advances, and then they became pregnant without the presence of a husband or a boyfriend. In both cases, they had dreams of being abducted aboard a spacecraft and being artificially impregnated. And in both cases, the babies were taken at about the 3rd month, and they were taken in such a way that the mother was pregnant up to that time and certified so by the doctors, and then she lost the baby overnight without a great loss of blood, woke up the next morning, and suddenly she is not pregnant. She goes back to the doctor, and the doctor says, we don't know what happened to the fetus. In both cases that I make reference to, there were 2 being types, creature types aboard the craft. There were beings, humans like us, and other smaller beings that would be one of the gray species, commonly called rays. The grays seem to be the ones doing the technical work, and the humans seem to be supervising the operation. We don't know whether it's an experiment in manipulating genetics, in cross-hybridizing species, or what. In one of those cases, the mother was later shown a crossbreed child that was quite different from us, but nothing like the alien hybrids seen aboard the spacecraft. Well, what's the meaning of all this? And why do UFOs approach mankind at all? It appears in the course of investigating over 100 cases in great detail that the extraterrestrials find Earth a very attractive place to visit. Where dialogue has taken place, the comment is frequently made that this is a wonderful laboratory to study life in evolution. They say that this planet has a greater variety of species in all classes and kinds and types than any other planet they visit. They say that this planet also has peculiarly short lifespans for all living creatures. And they suggest that this may be produced by the cosmic rays or rays coming from a particularly harsh sun that came through when the Earth lost its protective envelope, and the creatures on the surface were able to see the sun and the stars for the first time. And this was after the mythical flood in all of the legends of the planet. So maybe we are an attractive laboratory because of our peculiarly short lifespans at this time, which produces a rapid rate of mutation and adaptation of form and species and differentiation in evolution.
Implants found under the skin in different parts of the body of the abducted are another interesting object of study.
Our research is a little different in Houston. I have taken a proactive position in reference to the alien phenomena. Basically what that means is I'm not going to wait 200 years for the aliens to show up and do or say whatever they want to tell us. So what I've done is installed information within abductees that are getting picked up every 8 weeks or so, people I'm comfortable with that this is happening. I install a post-hypnotic suggestion to the abductors from me. This is information that only they know, so therefore it would cause an alarm to them, in my opinion, if this works. I install amnesia so that the individual doesn't even know the information is there, and so that the aliens can't pick it up. This happened on the 24th of November. A lady was picked up that night in Florida. She was one of our people. And in the middle of her abduction, as they're hauling her away, she looks over it, the post-hypnotic suggestion takes place. She literally wakes up out of her trance that they put her in, and she says, "Daryl knows what you're doing." This apparently alarmed the tall, what they refer to sometimes as a brown alien as he's standing there. He apparently told whoever sent him that information, they picked up all of our people on December the 8th in 2 states, in Florida and in Houston, Texas. A 44-page report was written by us about those events. All those people under regressive hypnosis described the same place, the same events, the same aliens. There were 7 different aliens that showed up on that craft. They wanted to know one primary thing. The primary thing they wanted to know was, how is he finding out this information? Why are you all gathering together? Why are you doing what you're doing? How did you able to find this out? The tall Nordic-type blonde alien that was in charge of this, with the other aliens, chided the little small grays and the browns for not following procedures. These abductees would never know what happened to them if you would use the anesthesia. You're traumatizing them and they're finding out how. You should never have done this. This is a picture, a larger picture, of course, of the eye implant in the mass abduction. This is the ocular implant that came out of the lady's eye, that fell out of her eye on December the 10th, the morning of December the 10th, when all these people were picked up in 2 states and their nasal and ocular implants removed. This is one that they forgot. This implant was examined by people at the University of Houston. It was determined not to be biological. It's not an egg of an insect. It's not a grain of sand. It's not anything like that. It was examined to have high levels of titanium and beryllium. The grays and the browns, believe it or not, are actually not that intelligent. They're quite sloppy. That's the reason we have so many physical implants and evidence from them. We also have a nasal implant. People talk about having implants in people, but we actually have the implants out. We also have other implants in people's feet in 2 different cases that the doctors, medical doctors, have stated that there is no, that these were surgically installed, and these people never had surgery, apparently. This is a remarkable case. It's one of the first cases I worked for the Houston UFO Network. It's a case where a lady has multiple abductions and tremendous amounts of information. She is very phobic about her experiences, has been very greatly traumatized. She experiences past syndrome, or something very similar to post-traumatic stress syndrome. In her feet, we found in this x-ray, which is made in 1986 by an independent medical doctor, he notices 3 metal clips inside her feet. So the question is, how did these metal implants get in her feet? They're approximately 1/4 inch long. There are 3 of them. The doctor says they were surgically installed. The same metal implants that were in this lady's foot, later we find out, are in the mother's feet as well. This often occurs whenever multiple abductions are taking place within a family. So the same implants are in the lady's foot. We find these out, these particular metal implants, in the mother's feet as well. Just before she dies, they do a medical workup on her, and they find that they just happen to x-ray her everywhere, and they x-rayed her feet and found the same metal implants in hers as well.
Although the abductions which have occurred in the United States have caused the biggest sensation, it's become evident that the same phenomena occur everywhere in the world, including Russia. After the opening of KGB files and other official sources, several cases of apparent hybridization experiments have emerged.
The incident occurred near Pinkova in the village of Okolovka. A woman claimed to have been pregnant twice, impregnated by an alien. The alien appeared to her in a dream. Twice, she also gave birth in her 4th or 5th month to a bluish, beeping, furry being. We sent an expert over, a colonel in the Secret Service, who investigated the matter. The study showed that she was speaking the truth. We got further confirmation at a symposium last year, in which an American, Dr. O'Neill, gave a speech on 150 similar incidents.
A special institute has been established in Kazakhstan, in former Soviet Central Asia, which prepares people for encounters with alien civilizations. The latest so-called 5th-degree contacts of the Institute's research group took place in November 1992.
I'll tell you of a few incidents that had occurred when we were trying to establish a contact. Our expedition was working at 4,000 meters in the Tianxian Mountains, and we saw UFOs fly over almost daily. They've been captured on photographs, slides, and even on videotape. The incident lasted 2 minutes. We learned that our invitation had been accepted, and a UFO was approaching the place we were working at. We'd sent our cameraman about a kilometer away, where a parapsychological group was working to make contact. Together, we sighted an alien intelligence contacting us. A globe-like object approached us. Of course, we photographed it, and it can be seen clearly on film. It hovered above our group for about 2 minutes, changing its shape, brightness, and size. Finally, when the photographer realized what he was shooting, he got excited and started shaking. He couldn't hold the camera and had to stop shooting. When studying contacts with extraterrestrial intelligence, we have noticed that UFOs often fly over geologically active areas. There are plenty of areas like that in the Tianxian Mountains. Every time there's a major earthquake, an unidentified flying object observes it. A Central Asian group of experts is trying to find out whether these UFOs cause the earthquakes, or could they in fact affect the earth crust so that the quake either has lesser force or moves elsewhere.
A global program aimed at fifth-degree contacts has been started in the New World too. Leading researchers working in the Gulf Breeze area of Florida have obtained very convincing evidence that at least 5 civilizations have visited Earth. Their aim in 1995 is to establish direct contact with extraterrestrial visitors.
Back in March of last year, I was with a group of 39 people sitting on the beach in Pensacola Beach, just south of Gulf Breeze. We got up, started drawing. Dr. Stephen Greer was leading this group, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, drew triangles in the sky with a very powerful spotlight, and 3 UFOs showed up right where he was making the triangles. Some of them interacted or reacted to his flashing of the spotlight, and then they moved away and kind of faded off, and 2 more appeared, and we kept trying to get them to come toward us, and they did come 0.8 of a mile closer to us. They were seen by 3 different groups of the Gulf Breeze research team. There was another group in the Champs parking lot on 98. The UFOs first appeared right in the middle between the 3 groups. We have actual reports during that period of 10 minutes or so, 10 or 12 minutes, from 7 different locations, 52 witnesses, all signed written statements. It was a well-investigated, interesting, close encounter of the 5th kind. That is a human-initiated encounter with some alien vehicle.
I can relate an experience, if you would like to know about it, from earlier this year in February, where a senior research team that CSETI has assembled was activated and sent to Mexico. And over the past year and a half, we have succeeded on a number of occasions of establishing contact with extraterrestrial spacecraft. On more than one occasion, huge extraterrestrial spacecraft at point-blank range, within 300 feet altitude. And these spacecraft were much larger than a 747. We estimate anywhere from 3 to 4 times the diameter and size of a 747. They were perfectly triangular, with a light at each apex and a red one in the center. And they came in a landing approach mode on February 1st, 1993, signaling to the team back and forth. At a distance, you know, there is film footage of these craft at a distance, but when it was very close, all cameras failed. Every electronic device on the site failed, which was very distressing to us because we wished to get this on film. Luckily, we had 5 scientists there and researchers who have been able to give their testimony to this event. And from what that event demonstrated, to go from there to a landing would have been 1 more minute. And I think that it is just a matter of time until our teams are successful in doing that. In the 12-month period from February 1992 until February 1993, we had no fewer than half a dozen very close-range, interactive, what we call a close encounter, the 5th kind event. And this is what we have termed these. This is where humans intentionally establish contact with the spacecraft, and they answer back. So it's human-initiated or human cooperative. This is a very different thing than just being out someplace and having one fly by and you happen to see it.
I think there is a transformation taking place on this planet, not only of the human species, but of the planet itself. I suspect that the end result of this transformation is probably what Jesus described as heaven on earth. However, if you think about that seriously, that entails the end of the human experience on planet Earth. That is a frightening idea to many people, especially people who are not capable of understanding what's going on. And I think that's one reason why our governments have maintained a policy of secrecy on this. Nobody in any government, any elected government, can afford to face the media on the issues. I find that higher intelligences are involved in educating members of our government also. There is a document that's been released to certain well-placed UFO investigators recently that I call the WRI document. It's apparently a result of a sociological study that the Majestic 12 group had contracted for with the Warwick Research Institute, which is associated with the University of Warwick in England. It's several paragraphs explaining how essentially the covert educational program is progressing, how it's affecting society, and how it might be speeded up at the present time.
The worst thing that would happen would be to bring this information out in a way that would panic society and which could cause people to lose hope for the future. And I think that we have to be responsible in what we are saying and doing. And this is a very key point to this second phase of the CSETI project, is that our intentions to brief world leadership and to brief the world are to do it in a way that are non-harmful to the consciousness of humanity. I think it is safer to say that we are being visited, that there's no evidence that they have hostile intentions, none whatsoever, and that therefore it is our responsibility to reach out to them and to try to establish an open contact so that we can really learn why they are here, how we may assist them if their desires are consonant with human evolution, and to keep the speculation to a minimum, because, as a very famous man once said, I think we have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Keskeisellä alueella universumia on eräs tärkeä planeetta nimeltään Xenos. Se on tärkeää monestakin syystä. Ensinnäkin hyvin monet muut sivilisaatiot ulkoavaruudessa pyytävät xenoslaisilta apua aina tarvitessaan. Neuvoja ja muita tietoja. Muun muassa siriuslaiset ovat aikoinaan lähteneet Xenokselta, eli he ovat sukulaiskansoja. Xenos on tällainen violettiplaneetta väriltään. Ja minulla on ilo muistaa eräs matka heidän mukanaan. Siitä on pari vuotta aikaa, kun oli kevättalvi, tai oikeastaan oli vielä talvi, kun eräänä yönä minä heräsin siihen, että makuuhuoneeni ikkunoista, joita minulla on 3 ilmansuuntaan, tuli ikkunasta toisensa perään mahtavat värit, ja kello oli 1:15 yöllä, kun minä sängyssäni istuin sydän pompottaen. Joku oli herättänyt minut. Mä katselin tätä ilotulitusta ja ajattelin, että mitä ihmettä tämä mahtaa olla. Jälkeenpäin minulle selvisi, että juuri sinä yönä minä olin ollut matkalla heidän mukanaan Xenoksella saakka.
Contact with humanoids have been made all over the world, bringing to the people involved various parapsychic skills, such as telepathy and clairvoyance.
Nämä asiat, mistä minä kerron, ovat kenties vaikea uskoa. Minä olen kanava, joka olen ottamassa näitä tietoja vastaan ja välitän niitä teille. Minä olen syntynyt tähän elämään juuri sitä varten, että pääelämän tehtäväni on tiedon välitys. Kertoa niin henkimaailman taholta kuin ulkoavaruuden olennoilta tietoa meille ihmiskunnalle. En ole ainoa, muitakin on. Ympäri maailmaa on tällä hetkellä inkarnoituneena tällaisia henkilöitä, joiden elämäntehtävä on sama. Minulle on kerrottu myös ihmiskuntaa koettelevista tulevaisuuden tapahtumista. Ensimmäisiä niistä muistaakseni on valtavan pyrstötähden tai komeetan sivuaminen maapalloa. Se tulee hyvin, hyvin lähelle ja siitä irtoaa, tai se räjähtää hyvin lähellä maapalloa. Ja siitä lentää suuri kappale Suomeen, lähelle suurta asutustaajamaa. Ja sen koostumus tulee herättämään tiedemiehissä tavattomasti kiinnostusta. Ymmärtääkseni tämä komeetta ei aiheuta mitään täällä katastrofia. On kerrottu myös tällaista valtavasta suurkatastrofista, joka tulee koskettamaan koko meidän maapalloa. Meidän akselimme tulee kallistumaan muutaman asteen tämän hetken näkymien mukaan. Ja se aiheuttaa valtavaa tuhoa maapallolla. Meret siirtyvät ja peittävät alleen valtavia alueita. Se aiheuttaa myös mannerlaattojen liikkumista, tulivuoren purkauksia ja valtavia ilmastollisia muutoksia. Tämän jälkeen ihmiskunta ei ole enää samanlainen. Ja tähän kaikkeen todennäköisesti ei kulu enää 10 vuotta. Ja tavallaan se on jo kaikki alkanut. Kun tämä suurkatastrofi tulee ajankohtaiseksi, niin meidän avuksemme tulee valtavia määriä ulkoavaruuden olentoja. He tulevat ikään kuin evakuoimaan meitä täältä. Minulla ei ole kovin paljon siitä tietoa, mutta tiedän, että me saamme apua. Ja se kaikki tulee ulkoavaruuden muilta älyllisiltä olennoilta.